Iowa wrestling gets absolutely pulverized by Penn State 32-3. An embarrassing loss for the Hawkeyes. And it's time to have an uncomfortable conversation about Tom Brand.
You are Locked On Hawkeyes, your daily podcast on the Iowa Hawkeyes. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, welcome in. I'm Trent Condon, and this is the Locked On Hawkeyes podcast. Thanks for making Locked On Hawkeyes your first listen every day. We are your daily Iowa Hawkeye podcast, coming to you each and every weekday, talking the world of Hawkeye athletics. I've been covering the Hawkeyes for over 20 years on the radio here in the state of Iowa, including currently on the Iowa Sports Radio. We're on the stations in Iowa City, Cedar Rapids, the Quad Cities, Sioux City, and our flagship 106.3 KXNO. Today's episode of Locked On Hawkeyes is brought to you by FanDuel. The college football playoff is here, and FanDuel is the best place to get into the action all through the playoffs. Visit FanDuel.com to get your college football playoff profit boost every game day, including Monday. Well, we are going to talk a little bit about basketball, but a little conversation with Tom Kakert, football conversation with him from HawkeyeReport.com. What's happening in the transfer portal, and a little bit more with Tom Kakert. We begin today, though, with what we saw last night, Friday evening at Carver Hawkeye Arena. Is Iowa is absolute blitzkrieged by Penn State 32-3. Now, losing to Penn State is not a big surprise. Losing this fashion really isn't a big surprise either. Iowa opened up as a 25-point underdog, closed as a 24-point dog in that one. But just think about that for a moment. Think about that alone. Iowa in a wrestling duel, even against Penn State, to be this big of an underdog, I think says a lot about where this program is, about where this program is going, and what the hope is that it's going to be as we look towards the future. It was domination up and down the lineup. And the glimpses that we saw of potential just weren't there. It's hard to get excited about the program. And there are other layers to this. And we will talk a little bit about Mo and Dean a little bit later on in the continued rumors and circulation that is out there. So I was listening for a while to a couple of the matches early on to the wrestling call and absolutely love what you get from Mark Ironside. Obviously loves the Hawkeyes. Former Hawkeye great. Him and Stephen Grace do an incredible job of not only painting the picture, but also giving that raw emotion. And to hear Ironside early on, just imploring the guys to be aggressive. Just hope beyond hope. You talk about somebody that actually cares, that has even more skin in the game than almost any one of us that is listening right now, that is viewing us right now on YouTube. That's Mark Ironside. And I thought that painted for me at least a picture. And as I've said, I love listening to Ironside and Grace. They do a great job. Listen to them so many times throughout the years. But to hear it in that context, and to hear when early on, at least, there probably wasn't realistic hope that they were going to win this meet and they were going to win the duel or anything like that. But just hoping for more. I mean, really, for me, the highlights come to this. I know Nasir Bailey, he won the only match, right? Got the win against Davis. All right, that's nice. We're hoping for Nasir Bailey to turn into the guy that he really was 2 years ago at Arkansas Little Rock. But even in that one, he stalled his ass off to finish things off. I mean, let's be honest. That's how he got the victory there. That was Iowa's only win in the duel. Dean Peterson a year ago beat Lillendahl. When Peterson was at Rutgers, he beat him. Not the case here. Lillendahl controlled the pace, controlled the action, was aggressive. Drake Ayala looks completely lost. He loses 5-2. Bailey gets the win, but in a way, you just kind of scratch your head at that one. Ryder Block was probably the highlight. Really, honestly. I think Ryder Block was the highlight of this duel. Ryder Block loves 13-4 to Van Ness. And yet, that was the one moment where I said, at least it's a guy trying. It's competing. And it took a lot out of him. And that's one thing also Ironside mentioned. And as I went back and watched that match again at 149, you can see Block, he put a lot out of that first period. He got the early takedown. There was no buzz. We knew what was going to happen. You continue from there. Mikey Caliendo. Messenbrick's just a lot better. Gabe Arnold slowed things down, still loses 4-2. Ferrari, who was one of the few favorites, gets beaten overtime by Welsh, the Ohio State transfer. I think we knew what was going to happen in 97, as Indeed now is no longer part of the program, and even go to heavyweight. And Kueter gets beat by Mirasola. It was not aggressiveness, ugly, boring, bad wrestling. When you look at it as a whole, again, not a surprise, not breaking news by any means. Penn State finishes with 15 takedowns. Iowa has 2. I mentioned one of them. I don't know what more we can say. And it leads to the conversation. And I know there's a lot of rumors out there about what actually happened with Mo. And when Indeed, as we talked about earlier this week, as Tom Brands announced that he's no longer part of the program. And a lot of those rumors paint a very ugly picture for Tom Brands. It paints an ugly picture for Iowa wrestling as a whole. And as we've gone through this step back as a program, it's not just that Penn State's elite, because they've been the elite for the better part of a decade. It's not just that. It is also, as you look around and now Iowa's battling, well, not just to finish behind Penn State at second, battling to finish in the top 4 or 5. That's where we are with this wrestling program. And the time is now to have that uncomfortable conversation. The one that I think any Iowa wrestling fan knew we were eventually going to get to. Is it time for a change? Tom, Terry Brands, Hawkeye greats, incredible wrestlers, their style, the way that they wrestled, their story coming out of Northwest Iowa, all of that I know endears Hawkeye fans and Hawkeye wrestling fans to who they are and what they are. And I get all that. However, when you look at where this program is, and not just, well, Penn State has taken it to another level as they have under Cale Sanderson, but secondarily, when you go through and you look at Oklahoma State, the way they're investing, losing to Iowa State, and the fashion that it's happening, and Iowa's inability or reluctantness to make a change in the assistant coaches and to bring in guys with a different style, bring in a more aggressive style, and the refusal to do that, we're left where we are right now. I know the kickback here. I know the take back for a lot of people is, well, who are you going to hire? Who's going to change it? And my rebuttal to that is, who's the last guy that has developed under this? Who are outside of a handful of guys you can point to that got markedly better in their 4 or 5 years on the Iowa mat? I know everybody improves. I know everybody takes leaps, but that list, and certainly for a place like Iowa wrestling, it's not at the level you see other places. And that's where a lot of this frustration comes in. That's where the question marks, I think, continue with this wrestling program. I don't have a great answer. I don't know the easy answer. Somebody that can turn Iowa around and get them back into national championship contender. What I can tell you, the product that was on the mat tonight was non-competitive. And when that happens, big time questions need to be asked. I wish I had an easy answer. I wish I had the guy that I knew could turn this thing around. But with Penn State and what they continue to do, it's hard to do that. They throw young guys out there. They already look a lot better than veterans that Iowa has in the lineup. It's frustrating. It sucks as a fan. But that's our reality here with Iowa wrestling. We come back. Let's talk some football. Tom Kakert's going to join us. His thoughts on the transfer portal and what Iowa has added there. Plus, we'll talk a little bit basketball a little bit later on. We roll through here. It is Locked On Hawkeyes. The college football playoff finishes up Monday night. FanDuel is giving all customers more ways to get in on the action. Right now, every college football playoff game day, that means Monday, FanDuel users are going to get a profit boost waiting for them in the app. I love the FanDuel app and the profit boost, taking my bets to another level. Of course, you can take whatever team you like. Is it the U? Is it Indiana? I'm on the Hoosier side of things. Whatever it is, though, you can take a shot at the underdog if you want to go that direction with them. Or what I love, building a big parlay. You know the players, you know the moments and how you think the game's going to play out. Put together a same game parlay and use that profit boost for bigger winnings. When you win, FanDuel pays out instantly, perfect for playoff football. FanDuel is the best place to get in to the action all playoff long. So visit FanDuel.com to get your college football playoff profit boost coming up on Monday. That's FanDuel.com.
Tom Kakert, HawkeyeReport.com. Guessing he's looking forward to the transfer portal closing up, although it brings a lot of people to your site. It's great for business, Tom, if nothing else. Yes, it certainly keeps you guys on your toes over there, but gets the folks over to your terrific site, HawkeyeReport.com, part of On3 Media. Good to talk to you, Tom. Before we get into football, let's just recap last night. The women moved to 6-0 in Big Ten conference play. Terrific start, a terrific game out of a couple of Jensen's gals. Stuelke was terrific last night, and as Trent mentioned, Addie Deal, maybe her best game as a Hawkeye so far. How about those, Tom?
Yeah, Hannah really looked solid, I thought, and the big thing was Addie Deal. Everybody's been waiting for, 5-star and everything to kind of have one of those games, and I think most Iowa fans remember last year, Ava Hayden, who's arguably, I don't even know if arguably, has been their best player this year, most consistent player, I think would probably be fair. She really struggled last year as a true freshman, and then kind of caught fire right around the Big Ten tournament, and then went on to have a couple of a good Big Ten tournament and performed well in the NCAAs. So everybody kind of develops differently. I think everybody was a lot of people were thinking maybe she was going to be like Caitlin and just come in and light the world on fire. And there's different players, and she's coming along really well, and I think we'll see more games like that moving forward.
This squad feels like they have a lot of upside. Very young in a lot of spots. You look kind of at this season. How far can they go? I mean, when you're talking about upside, and we know there's an elite level, right? And even if you get a top 4 seed and you get to host the first couple rounds, a Sweet 16 matchup against a UConn, against a South Carolina, against a Texas, that's a different kind of animal. What do you look at upside wise with this women's team?
Yeah, I think the goal for them should be to be a top 16 seed and be able to host the first 2 games at Carver Hawkeye. Yep. I think if they can do that and then make it to the Sweet 16, then I think that would be a really good season for this team, I think, and a good achievement for them. Anything beyond that, maybe getting to an Elite 8 would be even better. But right now, sitting 6-0 and arguably the deepest conference in the country is pretty good. But they're going to be running the gauntlet here in the next 7-8 games for sure.
Let's go over the men. Watch them battle Purdue, and they did. Back and forth. Everybody making one shot after another. So who was going to blink? Who was going to miss first? It was Iowa, and it seemingly, Purdue was able to build on that and ultimately hold on. But it's a winnable game tomorrow, Tom, as the team heads to Bloomington to take on Indiana. The point spread's about 1.5. Indiana slight favorite in this one. This feels like this is a really good opportunity for Iowa to find that quad 1 that's eluded them.
It really does, and hopefully they don't beat him too bad, because it's just like every time like the UCLA game, it was a quad 1 until they beat UCLA, and then it wasn't a quad 1 anymore. Right. But Indiana, I think, will stay in there, obviously, as a quad 1 win if it's on being on the road. The big thing with Indiana is that Iowa has had to contend with the last 2 games that Indiana doesn't. They don't have a lot of size. They're kind of like Iowa, and they've got kind of smaller guards. Now, Tucker DeVries is a really good player, and he's going to be a handful for them to guard. I think Tavion Banks probably going to have to end up on Tucker, but the Wilkerson kid.
He's the only
good.
He's really good.
He's a good shooter. He's streaky though. He'll get going, and he can really cook quick, but he can also miss a lot of shots. So but they just don't have any post guys. In the last 2 games, that's really given Iowa trouble, is those big post players.
Wouldn't have to worry about that against the Hoosiers. Down the stretch again, watched the video that you had up at HawkeyeReport.com and the McCollum post-game press conference. You brought it up again. I think the question was something along the lines of, how do you kind of get these guys over the hump, basically. Said, maybe teach them to foul less and get fouled more. It's been a week and a half now where he's been talking about it. He's been talking about it enough. When does it get to the point of trying to figure out the Big Ten to just whining about it every single time out?
Yeah, the statistics on the foul shooting in the Big Ten between Iowa and everybody else. I mean, Iowa's opponents have made more free throws than Iowa has shot in the Big Ten, and that's something that back in the Dr. Tom Davis days, Iowa would always double up their opponents on just an annual basis. So even France teams got to the line more than their opponents. And I don't know if it's just lack of respect towards Iowa, towards McCollum. Are they playing a style of basketball that doesn't create fouling situations? I don't know, but it's just, it is weird right now. They went to the line 6 times in that Purdue game, and there were 2 phantom calls, I believe both by the same referee who a couple of older players complained about over the years not liking Iowa. Won't name any names, but where Bennett Sturtz got kind of rolled into by Braden Smith and knocked out of bounds, and there's like no call, out of bounds. Here you go, and then Cooper Koch trying to just block out a guy so he couldn't get to the ball, which is completely legal, by the way. Yep. And it's not like he threw him or extended his arm to like shuck him to the side. He just tried to prevent him from getting to the ball and gets called for a foul. And it's just same referee.
And it's how he called that foul, Tom. I mean, it was emphatic going the other way.
Yeah, it was weird.
Yeah.
I asked Ben after the Minneapolis game, the Minnesota game. I was just like, "Hey, do you need to work the refs differently?" And
he just get teed up.
He just ran off all the other stuff. I think he does. I think he needs to just take one and just to kind of send a message that, hey, you guys aren't going to be able to push me around all season. This isn't how this is going to work. And my guys are out there playing hard, and they're getting fouled. I'll guarantee you Bennett Sturtz is getting fouled a lot, coming off of screens and everything else, and this is not getting called. And it's it's hard to win it's hard enough to win in the Big Ten, but when your opponents are making more free throws than you've even shot, that's a problem. It's hard to win that way. You can't win.
Paul Schultz is the guy's name. I'll say it for you, Tom. We know who it is, and I believe he grew up a Badger fan, if memory serves. But that aside, that was the guy that, and it wasn't just the Wyndham McCaffreys that were. This also goes back. Jordan Bohannon had the same thing to say. And I was also not the only Big Ten program. I've seen fan bases that have some questions about Paul, but that aside. So this matchup, I think, is just so intriguing, too, because how many fans wanted Darren DeVries to be the coach? Looked like maybe for a couple moments he was going to be the Iowa coach, went a different direction. There's plenty of Indiana fans that would have preferred McCollum, and I've seen plenty of that on Peegs and the Indiana message boards going back to April. So this is kind of going to be a weird one, too. And you just wonder if Iowa does find a way to go in there, hand Indiana their 3rd straight loss, what things are going to be from the Hoosier perspective if McCollum in year number 1 walks in there and gets a victory.
Yeah. By the way, Ben McCollum, first time he's lost 3 games in a row since 2013. Since February of 2013. He lost twice to Fort Hays State. I had to look it up because I was curious. Lost by 2 points and then 1 point to Fort Hays State. And in between there, lost to Washburn. And that was this three-game losing streak. He doesn't remember it. I asked him today about it, and he does not remember it. But this is a huge game for both teams because Iowa lost 3 in a row. They're spiraling. And I think if Indiana wants to make the NCAA tournament, they need a win like this. And especially after blowing that Nebraska game, I couldn't believe that. I kind of walked away from that Nebraska game because I saw Indiana was up by like 11, and it was in the second half, and I was like, oh, I got some stuff to do. And then I look later, I'm like, what in the world happened? They got beat by almost double figures. I don't understand what happened here. And, but yeah, they're just, I don't know that they're very good. They just don't have, the amount of talent. I wonder how many Indiana fans are going to be there. Are all of the Indiana fans in Miami?
Great point. Great point. Never thought of that. Yes.
Free tickets for friends and family for people that are all going to be.
Or there'll be people there that normally wouldn't have the opportunity to go. That's a good point.
And to answer your question, what happened? Both a 13-0 run and a 16-1 run out of the Huskers during the second half. Yeah, that's how you come back down like they were. What was it? By 16, I think at one point. 2 runs in the second half like that. Hey, Tom, football question for you. Iowa portal closing today. That just means that guys can still make it done. They're still doing a little bit of work. Any names, any position groups that they're still trying to figure out? I know punter hasn't been announced yet. Feels like they have a pretty good angle on that. Is a defensive tackle they're still searching for?
Yeah, that kid from that committed to UConn. That actually was Bryce Hawthorne's high school teammate, which is kind of crazy.
It's a good defensive line in high school.
Up together. Yeah, defensive lineman from who's at North Dakota, Emmanuel Ojibade, I think is how you say his last name.
Yep.
And he's on campus. I think pretty sure he's going to commit. And then they've got that Lance Sheedy, I think is the other kid, the wide receiver but he'd be a preferred walk-on from SMU. He was a walk-on there. So walk-on wide receiver would have an opportunity. And you know how they do the walk-ons now for a lot of when they call them preferred walk-ons, that just means that the school is going to pay for your tuition. That's what it means. Not these days is we'll take care of your bills. But you don't get like extra money. We're just going to take care of everything for you.
The old days.
So it's essentially almost like scholarship. Yeah.
That seems like it.
Yeah.
Tom, we're out of time, brother. Yeah. Thanks for doing this. Appreciate it. I will talk to you next Friday. Trent's off. I will reach out. Thanks, Tom Kakert, HawkeyeReport.com.
Tax season doesn't have to take over your life. This year, TurboTax is making it easier than ever to just hand things off and move on with your day. With TurboTax full service, you can have your taxes done for you by a trusted local expert, start to finish without the stress or guesswork. Instead of spending hours trying to figure out forms, you can meet with a local TurboTax expert in person or connect online. You can upload your documents, go about your day, and get updates right in the TurboTax app. I love this, a huge time saver. And for us that lead those busy lives, absolutely huge for you. And it gives you real peace of mind knowing an expert, a local expert, is handling it. For a limited time, you can have your taxes done by a local TurboTax expert for just $150, all in if a TurboTax expert doesn't file for you last year. Just file by February 28th. Take taxes off your plate and get back to your life. Visit TurboTax.com/local to book your appointment today. Back with you one final time here, Locked On Hawkeyes, as we got a week in front of you. I will be back with you again Saturday after the conclusion of Iowa, Indiana. We'll have a rapid reaction podcast here for you. Then next week, we got a couple of different things. I'm going to be away. Vacation time is in front of me. Yes, and with the winners in Iowa, that is a good thing, but already got a lot of work for you. We are going to have both a depth chart for the Iowa defense, the Iowa offense. That'll be coming out to you a couple of days next week. Also, we have a conversation with Todd Brommelkamp. We're going to talk some football with Todd, but maybe more importantly, we're going to do something a little bit different. We're going to talk to Todd about what it's like to be on the Iowa beat, covering the Hawkeyes in a different way. Something, though, I've covered the Hawkeyes for 20 years on the radio. I've never been on the beat before. So have some questions for Todd, and we'll get into that with him next week. And that's all coming your way on your daily Iowa Hawkeye podcast here, Locked On Hawkeyes. Wrapping up, though, basketball against Indiana. We talked about it earlier. If you missed it, broke down the game a little bit. Hoosiers, not a real big team by any means. A team that this game feels winnable. And the importance, I know for both teams. I mean, Indiana is having the same conversations that Hawkeye fans are right now. This is a winnable game. This is one you should put in the win column. I know it's a road game for Iowa, but really could change the tenor. During this 3-game losing streak, about why Iowa basketball can be what they're going to be under McCollum, get that quad one victory, get some good vibes going once again with this basketball team. We'll be back with you with that one tomorrow, breaking all things down. Hope you have a great weekend, Iowa wrestling aside, and we will talk to you then. Thanks for being with us and making Locked On Hawkeyes your first listen every day. You can find me on Twitter at Trent Condon. You can also find the show on Twitter as well at Locked On Iowa is where you can find us there. We're on Instagram, we're on TikTok, we're on Facebook, all over the place where you can find Locked On Hawkeyes. And if you never miss an episode, the Everydayer Club is built for you. Get Locked On Hawkeyes ad-free, plus members-only Discord access and a whole lot more. Head to lockedonhawkeyes.supercast.com to join the club. lockedonhawkeyes.supercast.com to find out if this is something makes sense for you and getting ad-free Locked On Hawkeyes and supporting the show. And for those of you on video, we're also going to hand out you the first ever 24/7 national Locked On Podcast Network YouTube channel. On audio, make sure you make your second listen of the day Locked On College Football to get you ready for the national championship game. We will talk to you again tomorrow after things go final with Iowa, Indiana. Until then, as always, go Hawks.